Have you ever caught yourself replaying a tiny mistake over and over in your head long after everyone else has forgotten it? Maybe you sent an email with a typo, said something slightly awkward in a meeting, or forgot to return a text right away. And suddenly you're convinced you're a complete failure, unworthy of love, respect, or even basic kindness. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Millions of people walk around carrying an inner critic so loud and so harsh that it drowns out every compliment, every achievement, and every moment of peace. Today we're going to explore the hidden world of people who are excessively hard on themselves. We'll look at where this tendency comes from, why it feels so impossible to turn the volume down on that inner voice, how it quietly destroys mental health and relationships, and most importantly, what science and real-life experience tell us about softening that self-attack without losing your drive or your standards. Let's start with a truth that might surprise you. Being hard on yourself is not the same as having high standards. High standards push you forward. Self-criticism pushes you into the ground. One is fuel. The other is poison wearing the mask of virtue. So who are the people most likely to fall into this trap? Psychologists have noticed a few common profiles. First, there are the perfectionists, specifically the maladaptive perfectionists. Adaptive perfectionists set high goals and feel satisfied when they do good work. Maladaptive perfectionists set impossibly high goals and feel like garbage no matter what they achieve. Research from York University in Toronto followed over 400 college students and found that maladaptive perfectionism was the single strongest predictor of chronic self-criticism, far more than childhood trauma or current stress levels. Second, we have people who grew up with emotionally inconsistent or highly critical parenting. If love, approval, or safety felt conditional, if you only got praise when you were perfect, or only avoided punishment when you never messed up, your young brain learned a survival rule: I must be flawless or I will be abandoned. That rule gets wired deep into the nervous system. Even decades later, when you're a competent adult surrounded by people who love you exactly as you are, the old alarm bells still go off at the smallest mistake. Third, there's a group that doesn't always look like classic perfectionists on the surface: the people-pleasers and self-sacrificers. They seem warm, generous, and laid back, but underneath they hold themselves to an exhausting standard. Their inner voice says, if I ever put my needs first, if I ever say no, if I ever let someone down, even a little, I'm selfish and unworthy. So they beat themselves up for having normal human limits. And finally, high achievers in competitive fields, medicine, law, tech, academia, entrepreneurship, often develop what researchers call impostor phenomenon coupled with harsh self-evaluation. They reach objective success yet feel like frauds, and instead of enjoying the win, they punish themselves for not being even better. The common thread: a core belief that your worth is conditional, that you have to earn the right to exist comfortably in your own skin. That belief is almost never conscious. It lives in the body as tension, in the mind as relentless second-guessing, and in behavior as chronic over-apologizing, overworking, and over-explaining. So what actually happens inside the brain of someone who is brutally hard on themselves? Neuroscientists using fMRI scans have found that harsh self-criticism activates the exact same regions as when we experience social rejection or physical threat: the amygdala, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the insula. In other words, when you call yourself stupid or worthless, your brain reacts as if a dangerous enemy is attacking you. Your stress response floods your system with cortisol. Heart rate goes up. Sleep gets wrecked. Over time, chronic self-criticism becomes one of the strongest predictors of clinical depression and anxiety disorders, stronger, in many studies, than external life stressors. There's another cruel irony: the harder you are on yourself, the worse your performance gets. A landmark study from the University of California looked at students preparing for exams. The ones who responded to early poor practice scores with self-compassion, treating themselves with the same kindness they'd offer a friend, actually improved more on the real exam than the ones who responded with self-criticism. The self-critical students studied longer but retained less because their brains were stuck in threat mode. Self-criticism also sabotages relationships. When you believe deep down that you're not good enough, you start doing protective maneuvers, hiding parts of yourself, refusing help, over-apologizing, or pushing people away before they can reject you. Friends and partners feel confused. They say, I love you exactly as you are, but your nervous system translates that into, they don't really know me yet. When they see the truth, they'll leave. So you either withdraw or test them until the relationship breaks, just to prove your original belief right. At its worst, chronic self-hatred becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect rejection, so you act in ways that create distance. You expect failure, so anxiety cripples your performance. You expect to be a burden, so you never ask for support and burn out alone. But here's the part that gives me chills every time I say it out loud. The harshest inner critics are almost always trying to protect you. That voice didn't show up to torture you for fun. It showed up when you were small and powerless and concluded, if I can just be perfect, maybe they'll love me. Maybe I'll finally be safe. In its clumsy, childlike way, it's still trying to keep you from abandonment or shame. That's why simply trying to silence it with positive affirmations rarely works. You can't hate a part of yourself into silence. You have to understand why it's screaming. So how do we begin to loosen its grip? Step 1 is pure awareness. Most people who are hard on themselves don't even notice how often they do it. They think that constant inner commentary is just the truth. Start keeping a tiny log, just a note on your phone, every time you catch a self-critical thought. Don't argue with it yet. Just label it, "There's the critic again." Research from UCLA shows that simply naming negative emotions reduces activity in the amygdala within seconds. You're teaching your brain, this is a thought, not a fact. This is an old alarm, not current danger. Step 2. Get curious about the function of the criticism. Ask the voice, out loud or in a journal, what it's afraid will happen if it stops attacking you. You'll usually hear some version of, if I go easy on you, you'll become lazy/arrogant/unlovable and everything will fall apart. Thank it for trying to protect you, then gently update it with adult evidence. I've actually achieved more on days when I treated myself decently. Rest doesn't make me lazy, it makes me sustainable. Step 3. Practice self-compassion, deliberately and repeatedly. Dr. Kristin Neff, the world's leading researcher on self-compassion, breaks it down into 3 parts. Mindfulness. Notice your suffering without exaggerating or suppressing it. Common humanity. Remind yourself that imperfection is universal, not a personal defect. Self-kindness. Speak to yourself with the same warmth you'd offer a loved one. There's a simple exercise Neff recommends that feels awkward at first but is backed by dozens of studies. Put your hand on your heart, take a slow breath, and say something like, "This is really hard right now. It's okay to struggle. I'm here for myself." People who do this daily for just 2 weeks show measurable drops in cortisol and increases in heart rate variability, the physiological signature of safety. Step 4. Reframe failure as data. High achievers who learn to be kind to themselves don't lower their standards. They change what mistakes mean. Instead of, "I messed up, I'm worthless," they move to, "I messed up, here's information about how to adjust." Elite athletes, surgeons, and artists who sustain long careers all do this instinctively. They treat setbacks as feedback, not character assassination. Step 5. Build a new inner dialogue based on values, not outcomes. Ask yourself, if no one ever praised or blamed me again, how would I choose to treat myself and others? Most people answer with words like kindness, courage, honesty, growth. Start speaking to yourself from that place, even when you don't fully believe it yet. The brain changes through repetition, not force. And finally, surround yourself with people who see your inherent worth. Not people who flatter you, but people who can hold space for your flaws without flinching. Their steady reflection slowly rewires the old belief that you have to earn love. I want to end with a story that still moves me years later. A few years ago, I worked with a client, let's call her Maya, who was a brilliant surgeon. Top of her class, published research, lives saved. But every minor complication, every time a patient had a longer than expected recovery, she spiraled into days of self-loathing. She hadn't taken a real vacation in 6 years because, "I don't deserve it." One night after a particularly tough case, she sat in her car in the hospital parking garage and Googled how to stop hating yourself. That search eventually led her to therapy. For months we did the work I just described: awareness, understanding the protective intent, self-compassion practices, reframing. It was slow. There were relapses. But one day she told me about a surgery that didn't go perfectly. A complication she couldn't have foreseen. In the past, that would have wrecked her for weeks. This time, she felt the familiar wave of shame rise, and then she heard her own voice, quiet but new, say, "Maya, You did everything humanly possible. This hurts, and that's okay. I've got you. She cried in the call, not from shame this time, but from relief. For the first time in her adult life, she went home, took a shower, ate dinner with her partner, and slept. Number 3 a.m. replay loop. No secret vodka in the cupboard. Just a hard day, met with ordinary human kindness, directed inward. That moment didn't make her a worse doctor. Within a year she was promoted to head of her department, because she finally had the emotional bandwidth to mentor residents instead of hiding in shame after every tough case. If Maya, a woman whose inner critic once told her daily that she should probably just disappear, can learn to treat herself like a human being worthy of care, so can you. Being hard on yourself feels like the price of admission for a meaningful life. But it's not. The real price of a meaningful life is the courage to be imperfect out in the open, to keep growing without punishing yourself for growing slowly. You don't have to earn the right to be gentle with yourself. That right was yours the moment you arrived here, messy and real and enough. Start practicing today. One kind sentence. One deep breath with your hand on your chest. One moment of seeing your struggle as part of the shared human story instead of proof that you're uniquely broken. You've carried that critic long enough. It's time to let it rest, and let yourself rise.